Hey, fellow cyclists and friends, has anyone told you how amazing you are? Yeah, you. Yeah, it's true. And I just want to let you know that I've been thinking about you. The new year's coming around, and I hope you have the most amazing week and the most amazing holidays. Now, our podcast is clearing 100,000 downloads thanks to you guys, and I just want to shout you out. You guys are so amazing, but I have something really special for you. Continue listening. You're a woman, this is totally for you. The 4-week cycling skills workshop benefits all women. These skills can be implemented immediately on the bike and trainer, cycling outside, indoor cycling, on a spin bike or Peloton. All your current frustrations and questions will be answered, guaranteed. If you're interested in joining me, don't wait another moment. With this link, you can get started at the beginning of each month. I know you're trying to decide whether or not to check out the 4-week cycling skills workshop for women, but I don't blame you. There are so many other online cycling training platforms that offer cycling routes and training sessions, but here's what makes my 4-week cycling skills workshop different. First of all, it's taught by someone who's not just starting out, but actually is pretty experienced. I've been working with free clients in my cycling club, Cycle Fit Chicks, all the way to Canadian national female cyclists. And I continuously update my coaching tactics to help beginner to advanced cyclists level up with these cycling techniques hardly anyone is talking about. Secondly, the 4-week cycling skills workshop for women is so much more. A lot of times there are online cycling training programs that teach you how to train intensely, but actually don't help you develop the fundamental cycling skills and techniques such as gear management, hill climbing, strength, power and speed, and nutritional timing in order to effectively become a faster, fitter, and more efficient cyclist and well-rounded athlete. And also, there are very few courses about cycling that actually teach you how to develop a smooth, efficient pedal stroke. The 4-week cycling skills workshop for women aims to fill both these gaps in cycling training. Not to mention, the workshop provides the recordings of the explanations, demonstrations, plus homework. In addition, you will gain access to a library of over 100 strength training workouts to help you level up, and that is all on top of the core curriculum you already get when you join the workshop. So it's safe to say I'm delivering incredible results coaching over 1,000 female cyclists through my cycling club, and now it's even more exciting to impact more female cyclists globally through my 4-week cycling skills workshop for women. You can't go wrong when you join a workshop developed by women for women. It's time to level up and remove the frustrations. So if you're ready to join, just click the link that you see and secure your spot today in one of the next 4-week cycling skills workshops for women sessions. Now, before the new year, with this amazing deal, a 25% off until December 31st. Limited spots available. Don't wait another minute. Click the link and enroll today, and I can't wait to see you on the inside. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie Brideau, sitting here in beautiful Chelsea, Quebec, Canada. And I am so excited to have found this woman who is currently in the UK, but I found out that she is Canadian from Nova Scotia. Woo! So this is Michelle, is it Brideau?
Yes, I can't even say it properly. That I can't do the rolling of the
I was just like, man, that's kind of a French name. And she has been living in the UK for a number of years. So Michelle started cycling commuting in 2014 in London as a way of getting a way to stay fit and exercising, adding exercise into her life. 5 months later, she was planning a ride across Canada. And in her first year, she bought 3 bikes. So since then, she has been on many tours. She cycled in the Pyrenees, fell in love with long distance cycling,
and achieved Super Randonneur status. So funny, Michelle, that I read that because I just interviewed a guy who is a randonneur in Ontario. And so cycling has truly changed her life from being her medicine, keeping Crohn's in remission. I'm gonna actually ask you about that, to becoming her new career since she opened her One Less Car shop online, a cycling accessories store for those who travel by bike. Michelle, I am super excited that I found you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so great to have a chat with a Canadian. So.
Yay! I know, eh? And like,
yeah, and I'm glad I found your podcast now.
Well, thanks. Oh my God. So there's a lot of things that I have to ask for you, and I'm sure our listeners are like, oh, bring out the goods. So let's start with how you got into cycling, or maybe better yet, how you found yourself in London and into cycling.
All right. So I always wanted to live abroad. I only speak English, despite my French name. So it kind of limited my options. And while I would love to live in New Zealand, it was a bit far from home. I thought I'd feel cut off from family and friends. And it's just reassuring to know, right across the pond is home, because I'm from Halifax. So it's, right there. So I ended up in England, fulfilling that dream of living abroad in 2007. And I was based in London. So was on my merry way. Interestingly enough, about a month after moving to London, I did buy a bike. And that first attempt failed miserably. My second attempt also failed.
Why did it fail?
Yeah, how did it fail? I think I scared myself. I went out for a ride and then just kind of like, because I don't know the left side of the road and I don't know the rules of, the road in the UK. I'd only been there a month, and just a lot of traffic and a lot going on, and not knowing where I was going because I didn't know the neighborhood. So I think it just overwhelmed me. So I parked my bike, and it was locked up outside of the flat I lived in, because the flat had a set of stairs. I could never carry the bike up or down. And 3 months later, it was stolen.
I was going to say, that must have been...
Yeah, but don't worry. I should send you a picture of this bike. Looking back on it now that I have an eye for beautiful bikes, like, oh, that is one hideous bike. I just wanted it because it was red and it was like 50 pounds. And that was like my budget, because I just moved country. But now, it's a hideous department store bike. When I look at it, it's just awful. Part of the reason I probably didn't enjoy it, because I wasn't fit, and it was probably really hard work to ride that bike. The second attempt was, my husband had started cycling. We lived near where the Olympics were being held in London. At the time of the Olympics, he thought, there is no way I'm going to be able to get on the tube and get to work. I best get a bike so I can cycle in. So that's how, he was my boyfriend at the time, how he started cycling. And then I think he thought, we should get Michelle a bike. And I think he saw, I'd been looking at Bromptons at the time. I've been eyeing up Bromptons, trying to decide, shall I try this cycling thing again? And I thought, yeah, I will, but I need to save for this bike. I want this Brompton, because I was worried about it getting stolen after having one stolen. And he bought me, I don't know how much it was, but the cheapest folding bike you have ever seen. And I really, I try to tell people this: if you want to cycle and you want to be successful, you really have to get a decent bike. And I think a decent bike means £500 full price. I don't mean thousands, but if you can get on a £500 bike on sale, fine. But that's sort of the starting point for a decent bike in my mind. This bike was awful. The first time I rode it, the bolt holding the handlebars didn't hold up. So when I stood up to get over a canal, like a bit on the canal, it collapsed and I almost fell in the canal. So that kind of put me off riding that bike, and it was hard work. I eventually sold that bike to somebody, and I rode it the 14K to work to give it to them. And at this point I was in good shape. I was, in really good shape. And I found that 14K really hard. So I know that bike was pretty So yeah, all you boyfriends out there that want your girlfriends to ride bikes, at least get them a decent one. I
always tell my ladies that, like, if you want to have a good experience, like $1,000, $15 for an entry level bike that you'll sit on for probably 5 years, and I started on one like that too. And then I upgraded to 3,000 and then 6,000. So it goes with it, but it definitely pays off when you get something decent. Yeah.
You learn a lot from that first bike, but you need to have a bike, like you say, that you're going to want to sit on. And the price range you're giving is similar to, in pounds, what I'm talking about, what you get here. So yeah, it makes a difference. It's not, I think everyone thinks a bike should cost what their last kid bike cost. Oh, a bike, $200, right? Because that's what their last bike as a kid cost, maybe. I don't know. But there's this weird concept of what bike pricing should be. But it's worth spending out. There's no sense in spending 200 and have it sit around collecting dust. Then you've wasted 200. You might as well go get the decent one that'll get used, right? So anyway, so the third attempt did stick, but it was after I'd been sick. I had a flare up of my Crohn's, and actually I shouldn't say that. I try not to say my Crohn's. It's Crohn's flared up, and I actually had to resort to surgery in this instance, and really realized I'd gotten away with a lot over the years in London, and really, although I didn't have a car, so I was walking a lot, really didn't have a lot of movement in my life, and I really, really didn't like the gym, and I just started a new career, so I was trying to figure out how am I gonna, I don't want to go to the gym, I don't have time to go to the gym. So I thought, I'll try this commuting by bike thing, and that will kill two birds with one stone, right? I'll commute and I'll just multitask, and it will save me money. That will be great. As we all know, when we fall in love with cycling, it does not save you money, but
yeah, that's right. I know.
3 bikes in 1 year did not save me any tube fare. But 14K is not a short distance for somebody who's, had surgery that year, and, I just gained the weight back from the weight I lost from that. So 14K was a bit intimidating. 30K a day is a lot for someone starting new. And it was November when my bike finally arrived, and that's a dark and dreary time of year to start cycling. So I committed 3 days of the week, that, just 3 days. That way I could pick the 3 good weather days at least, right? And pick and choose. And so, yeah, started off as the scaredy cat ever. Like, the thought of sharing the road with traffic petrified me. First time I went out to do route finding with Nathan, who's my husband now, there was a row of parked cars, so we had to take the lane, and he went out in the middle of the road to, go around these parked cars. And I was like, and I just stopped and pulled over, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "But we're going to hold up the cars behind us." And he's like, "Uh-huh." And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." He's like, "Get in the road." So I've slowly built up my confidence over the winter. I was taking, paths and side roads and quiet roads, and, where I was comfortable. And then as I learned how to maneuver myself and keep safe and position myself in the road, I learned quite quickly, I'm going to get close past if I stay in the gutter. So I need to assert my position in the road. We have a lot of pinch points in the UK. So I take the center of the lane when there's pinch points. So just learning to survive. And then, spring came, and then there was sunshine, and I was realizing I'm over the fear and I'm really loving this. And I went the long way home did a loop around the park. Then I signed up for a ride to Oxford, thinking that would be a fun challenge to do with Nathan. So I'm like, well, I best go out on weekends and, build up these miles and sign up with the club. So I worked at Sky, as in the company that sponsored Team Sky. So I had a lot of support at work, and that's why that event existed, because the company was hosting the event. So yeah, I showed up at the Sky Velo, and I was on my hybrid bike with a D-lock attached. Oh yes.
Yeah, I love it.
The most embarrassing moment in cycling, which probably there's embarrassing things. And I looked around, and I had asked them, what's your average speed, blah, 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 and all this. But I wanted to learn how to ride in a group, because the sportif would require me to ride around other people. And wow, they're
like, with your bike, you might want.
No, the opposite. They were so kind to me. So
good.
I'm talking ex-Team Sky bikes. There's a Dogma Pinarello. I had no idea at the time, but I looked at it and knew I am out of my league. These are some nice bikes. And God, why did Nathan let me leave the house with the D-lock attached? He had never ridden with a club before himself, as much riding as he had done up to this point. He'd never done a club ride. So I was like thinking, should I toss this in the bush? What do I do?
You're like, but I've had my bike stolen before. I need my.
Yeah, because they said there was a cafe stop, so I'm like, I need a look.
Oh, well, hey, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah. So and I'd only cycled 35K in one go at this point. This was it was in total from home and back 90 kilometers. So it was a big jump for me to go that far with all that extra weight. So yeah, they started off, and we had a second meeting point for the rest of the group, and the team lead said, okay, so we're going to split into 2 groups today, a fast group and a slow group. And I'm like, excellent. I know why we're doing this, but I don't care. So kindly 4 of them stayed behind with me in the slow group, and they made me feel welcome. And it's because of that I came home like blitzed from doing that kind of distance for the first time, and sat on the couch, and the first words out of my mouth was, I'm buying a road bike.
That's right.
But they made me feel welcome. Otherwise, I would have just never gone back, and I don't know what I would have done. But those beginners, they know they're holding you up. They're not stupid, right? And as a beginner, you have a lot to learn. So they showed me kindness, and I came back with a road bike. So, and that at that point,
like win-win.
yeah. And at that point, I realized I really like the stop. When you're commuting, you're stopping and starting a lot. So it's a different type of riding, and it's a very in the moment. You're very focused, and I love that about commuting because it kept me in the moment. So whatever you're stressing about that day, you forget it for 45 minutes because you're focused on staying alive and not getting hit by the double-decker bus. And I love that because I have a very busy mind, and I love that for those 45 minutes, it's almost like meditation because I was put in the moment. I had to focus to stay alive. And when I got to work, I felt like I'd accomplished something. I made it alive. And when I went on the longer rides, I fell in love with cycling for a different reason. It just felt like the rhythm and the meditation. It was almost like people say meditation in motion. And I could really get that because there wasn't the stop starting. And when you're drafting, especially if you're drafting a fast group, you really get in this rhythm, and it's amazing. So I fell in love with that side of cycling, and that's why I ended up with the road bike, because I knew I would enjoy doing long rides regularly. And so that was how I started cycling in London.
Can I ask you, Michelle, about Crohn's and how have you had Crohn's? Like when did you develop Crohn's, and how did you use cycling to with Crohn's?
Yeah.
Go back and just talk about that.
Yeah. So I remember as like teenager thinking, oh, I am so glad I have a stomach of steel. I don't know what I would do if I had a troublesome stomach. And I don't know why, but I remember having that thought and being grateful for the stomach of steel I had. But then in the later years in high school, I started getting like iffy stomach. So it could have been then, or that could have been just normal hormones fluctuating. I don't know, because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 25, 26 when I was living in Vancouver. And it came to the point, I complained to my doctor in Halifax that my stomach was getting upset a lot. And she sent me to a specialist who asked me questions and did a test that for somebody who'd never been sick or to a doctor was mortified, like just so embarrassed. And maybe it was his bedside manner, but I just was humiliated. So I never went back. But then in Vancouver, my quality of life got so bad that I was surviving every day. I was sitting in front of clients. I was a travel agent at the time, and I would be having massive cramp, and I would just sit there like nothing was happening and just continue on what I was doing because I had to. I didn't know what else to do. But I would get home and I couldn't eat. So I was living off so those of you who don't know what Crohn's is, it's an inflammatory bowel disease, which can affect any part of your digestive tract from your mouth to the very end. So I was getting in its inflammation. So my intestines were inflamed, so I couldn't eat or absorb nutrients. So I could eat very little, and what I could eat, I wasn't absorbing very much of. So I was very tired all the time, little low energy. I couldn't go out hiking when I lived in Vancouver and enjoy all the beautiful outdoors there because I just didn't have the energy to do it. So when my quality of life got so bad, I was like, you can do whatever test you want on me. I don't care. I want to know what's wrong with me. And I was trying elimination because I had an 8-month wait to see a specialist in Vancouver. And so I was trying elimination diets, and I was just like, what is going on? It turned out my boyfriend at the time, he smoked, and he smoked inside our flat, and secondhand smoke is a trigger for Crohn's. So that is why it flared up at that point in my life. So I got diagnosed. I was very happy to have a name for what was wrong with me. Then I found out it's an incurable disease with no real good treatment. And I was like, oh, nothing really changed except I knew what was wrong with me. Yeah. And I just kept losing weight. It was pretty harsh. And then a few years later, I talked to somebody whose wife had arthritis in her joints, and swollen joints were one of my symptoms of Crohn's. So I had inflammation in other parts of my body, and my joints were one of them. And they said, oh, my wife takes this stuff called bromelain. You should try. And I thought, that's interesting. So that conversation went away. It took me some months later to get around to finding it and trying it. And it's just a natural anti-inflammatory found in pineapples. So I tried it, and within 48 hours, joints were back to normal. And then about a week later, I'm like, I haven't had a stomach ache in a week. That's a really good week for me. And another week and another, and I'm like, what is this stuff? And it's also a digestive enzyme. But I'm like, I don't know what this stuff is, but I'm normal, like for the first time in years.
Where can I get this in mass supply?
Yeah, basically, I can never run out of this stuff, right? Because the medications they gave me weren't working, and other medications they wanted to give me, I wouldn't take because they didn't have good success rate and they had horrible side effects. So, you know, and then there's this natural anti-inflammatory that in 48 hours had me back to normal. It was just incredible luck I had that conversation, right? So
the reason why I ask is that my daughter, who's 19, has she either has Crohn's but she's been diagnosed with, she has inflammatory, like she has real bad gut issues. But what they've discovered is that her stomach, like her food sits in her stomach too long. You know, it's like it doesn't move, and I can't remember what the name is for it. So she's not digesting any nutrients because it sits in the stomach acids too long. And it, you know, by the time it moves through, like everything is absorbed and broken down. Is that something that you're experiencing, or is that completely,
I used to feel like what a normal person would feel like after eating Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, I would feel like that after 2-3 bites of food. So it would just, like you say, it would sit. But the reason it would sit for me is because my intestines were so narrowed, it would take so long for it to fit through, right? So my spot is, like I say, it can affect any part of your digestive tract. For me, it was where your large and small intestines connect. So as soon as some food hit there, everything just would start backing up. So I would get 3-4 bites of food in and then feel like I'd had a turkey dinner and like, oh, I feel ill, like don't want to eat anymore. Yeah, I mean, I'll send you a link, because with the bromelain, it's important that you get a good quality, potent version of it to get enough of the anti-inflammatory. It's a digestive enzyme too, so I think it had double impact for me. But what happened with the cycling side of it was, so for years, that was my way of maintaining my health. And I had that flare up in London, and I just couldn't understand it because I hadn't been exposed to secondhand smoke. I just couldn't find what the trigger would have been in that instance. So, and the symptoms were very different to when I was in my 20s. In my 20s, it was the normal running to the toilet multiple times a day, having stomach cramps. In this case, the symptoms were quite different. And when they said it was a flare-up, I was a little bit surprised, actually, because I didn't recognize the symptoms. So I resorted to surgery to get, so what happens is you get scarring. So the narrowing of your intestine becomes more permanent because you have ulcers that build up and heal, and then they leave scarring, and that scarring starts to become what's narrowing your intestine. So I said to my doctor, I think it's time we remove the damaged bits and just see if I can't get back on track. And that's what we agreed. And I mean, I was in tears. I thought I one day would have to resort to it, but way more in the future. And because these symptoms, I didn't recognize them. It was upsetting to me to go under the knife, basically. Yeah. So we did that, got my health back on track, which is why I looked back and thought, I can't take my health for granted anymore. And I'm 38. I need to get movement in my life. And I want to eat cake. I love cake. And, you know, I can't get away with that as easily as I used to. And I'm used to being able to eat what I want, right? I've been quite thin all my life without trying. And I was like noticing I wasn't quite getting away with that anymore. Because
it's funny how that happens. You're like, oh.
And I had the joy of stuffing my face to put the weight back on after surgery. But then I'm like, gotta stop now. So, so I tried to get in on a trial that was happening in Vancouver. Canadian trial that was about resetting your immune system, which they think it's a problem with your immune system, Crohn's. And because it was a solution, not a band-aid to the symptoms, I was like, I'm interested in what they're doing. They're not saying, here, take this pill for life that has horrible side effects to then patch up, you know, all the symptoms you're having. They're saying, we're going to reset your immune system so you can be normal again. And I was like, that's of interest to me. So I signed up with them to go on their trial and stopped taking the bromelain. And gosh, at this point, I've been cycling for about 4 months and didn't get sick. Like, what is going on? The only thing I've changed is I started cycling. And I went to New York with a friend for a trip, and we were 5 days in New York, and I didn't have a bike, I didn't ride, and started getting symptoms. And I was like to my friend, I need to find a health food store, I need some bromelain. Like, I'm getting, my joints are starting to hurt, I need to get this under control. And same thing happened. Every time I went 5 days or more without cycling, I would start to feel the niggles and the symptoms. And I'm like, no, it can't be the bike. It can't be the bike.
Yeah.
And it was the bike. So every time I go, it's about 7 days now without cycling, I start to get symptoms. And as soon as I feel them, like I know them, like you become really in tune with your body when you have an illness like that. And I know them. I know, like, if my hip starts aching, that's it. Even, and my doctor said, my doctor has it as my treatment now, my specialist. I was in Canada without a bike once, and I felt it coming on, and I turned around the car and I went home to my dad's, put on some leggings and went for a run for 20 minutes. Because I'm like, obviously it's not cycling, it's not magic. It's the getting your heart rate up, I think, and, you know, exercising. It must flush my system. My system must be sluggish or something. I don't know. 20-minute run, I'm fine. And so my doctor says, okay, I don't want to hear about this running business. You can only run in emergencies. And she just said, because of the way your stomach is suspended, it's not great. It's not great for it. She says, I don't, you know.
Oh, the bouncing?
Running marathons. Yeah, there's something that she said about, because of what she sees after the marathon with people with Crohn's and stuff. Yeah, so she's not anti-running, but, you know, she doesn't want me to turn into a marathon runner, I don't think. So
well, it makes sense. Like, if it's all that bouncing and just the jiggling, I guess maybe of the acid in the stomach. And
I think, yeah, or just the suspension putting stress on it. I don't know. She doesn't want my stomach under stress. And we were talking about it when I first discovered it. And she's like, also when you pedal, there's almost massaging of your lower intestines going on, right? Because
now that makes sense. Because like the hips.
But I think it's because by running and getting my heart rate up, I flush my system more efficiently. I think I just have a sluggish system, maybe.
I think that because of the removal of that portion of your intestine would have, because nothing's backed up now, and it's.
No, I think it would have been the case before that, because they only took 8 centimeters out. It's not like they took you have a lot in there. I only lost
I was thinking like, you know, maybe 4 inches or something like that. But 8 centimeters, okay, that's not.
And my appendix. So I got 2-for-1 surgery. Never have to worry about, because my weak point is in the area your appendix is. I never now have to worry, oh, is that feeling an appendix attack? So
right, yeah, and that's something you don't want to ever. So that's really interesting, like, because I'm going to talk to my daughter about this. The thing is about my daughter is that she doesn't live with me, so I don't get to hear all the updates and, you know, what she's doing. But this is really interesting, and I'm going to take it offline after, just to ask you about this. But so how did you then end up from what you went to the UK, came back to Canada, went back to the UK, and now you're established and you've got your business?
Yeah. So cycling, it changed my life in so many ways, right? It's my medicine now. It's, you know, it's the way I go out to have fun. It's how I meet people. But it's also became a job and a career, interestingly, quite recently. So I started my YouTube channel to record my ride across Canada. So I thought I've always taken photos, and when I was a teenager I saved up for a video camera, so I've always loved recording things and YouTube's a great place to share. And I just felt like when I was researching my trip, all the blogs I read were so helpful to me, but there was no video or anything out there. So I thought, I'll do it as a video, because I don't think I'll want to sit there and write a journal at the end of the day. I'll be too tired,
Okay.
right?
It's like I could just talk into my camera. This is how I'm feeling like right now.
So in order to be able to do that and learn to edit, I started videoing and sharing the journey leading up to it. So, you know, the training I was doing and the rides I was going on, and, you know, testing the camping gear, just as a way to practice the editing. So I wouldn't be learning it on the road. So every week in Canada, we released a video of a week's worth of the trip as we went along. And I really enjoyed the fact that people would say things like, oh, you've inspired me to get my bike out of the garage and dust it off. And just to see somebody who isn't sporty or racing or trying to be the fastest, I thought it was a different side of cycling that you don't always see in the media. And I also, when I had the question, when it popped in my head, I was just like, oh, I wonder how long it would take to cycle across Canada. I didn't really think people did it. I just was kind of like, I wonder how long it would take to do that kind of distance, as I started to fall in love with the road cycling and, you know, doing 100K and all that. But when I Googled it and I saw people's touring blogs, I'm like, oh, people do this.
This is a thing. Yeah. Oh, and there's tours.
Yeah. And they're like, I want to do that. So for 2 weeks, Nathan thought I was actually joking that I was going to cycle across Canada. And I said, okay, they've approved the time off work, unpaid leave. Are you coming? Because I'm going. And he's like, oh, she's not joking.
Did he ride with you, or was he did he drive?
No, he rode. So, I mean, he loves cycling as well. I think I surpassed him in the cycling obsession, but, you know, he was, before I started cycling, we'd be out, and, you know, when you hear the noise of a bike hub and you look, because you can't help but look to admire the bike or see what they're riding. He used to do that. And I'm like, well, at least you're checking out bikes, not women. But I mean, I do that now, so I understand, right? You want to see what the bike is. Oh, that sounds like a nice hub. What is it?
Yeah, we're like, oh, nice outfit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So he was coming. Yes, he wanted in on the adventure, and I was not worried about the cycling. I just realized, oh, how many nights it was going to be. I couldn't afford a hotel for all those nights. I was going to have to bring camping and do the camping thing. And I was like, I've never camped in a tent before. We had like pop-up trailers as a kid, and we went camping in campgrounds, but not this with the bears and the Rocky Mountains and the wild camping and the stealth camping and all that. And I was like more afraid of that than how am I going to cycle? I knew I could ride a bike 100K a day. That was not a problem. So yeah, anyway, off we went, recorded it. The channel became a thing. We got back, and I decided to keep making videos. I did enjoy the process, and I enjoyed showing that side of cycling that's about the joy, and that I'm not terribly sporty. I'm not, you know, I'm not worried about my watts. I do like to be fast and strong, but I don't worry about anything other than challenging myself and finding a challenge that motivates me to get out on my bike more. I don't race because I'm ultra competitive. So I know if I open up that can of worms, my life will just, you know,
have a life.
Yeah, right. So I keep that under wraps for that reason. I know from when I was younger, I don't enjoy that. It just stresses me, and it's not a joy to me. And I like, it's my medicine, so I can't have that. I've seen people burn out and not be able to look at their bikes and be unmotivated, and I can't have that happen because it's my medicine. So yeah, I kept making videos, sharing my adventures, sharing the tours I did in the UK. I rode Odaxes, so shared my Odax experience in endurance. So I started getting into endurance riding by cycling around a lake in Sweden. 300K was my first endurance ride, and shared all of that, and just really enjoyed the comments.
When you finished Canada, is that when you moved over to like Europe?
No, I always, as of 2007, always lived over here. So it's almost 15 years. So I went back for visits, but I never went back to live.
Okay, so when did you do across Canada? When did you bike across Canada?
I've been here 10 years, so 2016, so 5 years ago-ish.
Okay, so you were in Europe, and you decided to go back and bike across Canada.
Yeah, so I've been here almost 10 years, and I was actually at the point where Nathan and I knew we wanted to leave London, but didn't know where to go. And cycling across Canada was almost a good tester of, is Canada on the list of places we consider or not to move out of London to. And I love going home. It's an amazing way to see Canada. And people kept asking me where I was from because of my accent. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm from here. What do you mean my accent? I've got a kind of messed up accent now, apparently. But yeah, I've always
You
lived.
can hear a little bit of the London accent, but the Canadian.
So all the Canadians hear the slight British twang I now have, and all the British people hear my Canadian. And then some people ask me if I'm Irish, which must be the Nova Scotia thing. Some people get it bang on. I hear Irish, and I hear Canadian, and I hear Southeast UK. What's going on? And I'm like, you just hit all the places I've lived. The Irish is the East Coast accent, but so yeah, I've lived here almost 15 years now. Yeah, so I kept the channel up. It offered all kinds of experiences to me, meeting people I wouldn't have met, and the opportunity to test products and be asked to try out things and be invited places to ride. Yeah, so enjoyed it, kept that going. I then last year, a year and a half ago or so now, was asked to be a presenter for a company that was locally here opening an electric bike and electric scooter company. Contacted me about being a presenter on their YouTube channel, and I was just like, okay, that's something I do as a hobby. Because I used to work at Sky Sports. I mean, there's proper presenters and professionals. I'm like, I am not a presenter. And I'm quite happy in front of, I used to be so awful, and I really dislike to be in front of the camera. It's not my natural place to be at all. And I learned to get better at it because I wanted this message of cycling is fun and you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, kind of to encourage especially women to get out there and try it. Because if I can go from having a bike to 5 months later planning a trip across Canada, and then because that was in May, June, I had to wait a year to actually do it. And if I can commute in London, I was terrified of traffic. I mean, anyone can do it. So I just want women to see, well, I'm not brave and strong, or I wasn't when I started. And you can come a long way quite quickly in cycling, which is the fun part about it, right? Like that hill you couldn't climb, you can now ride up mountains. And so I love that about it. And it makes you respect your body so much more because, I look at my legs and they've gone up, the mountains in the Pyrenees, they've crossed the Canadian mountains and Canadian Rockies and things. And at one point when I was training for that ride across Canada, I put my hand on my thigh and I was like, oh, whose thigh is that? It was just so rock hard and so little fat on it. I didn't recognize, it just felt
then you try and put your jeans on, you're like, oh
yeah,
my God.
Body is amazing, right? Go use it for something interesting. So I got this job as a presenter randomly out of the blue, and I'm like, how could I say no to that? You want to pay me to talk about bikes? So I knew it was a risk and I took it, and that lasted about 10 months. And then they decided they didn't want a YouTube channel after all. And in the meanwhile, my husband and I were talking about starting a cycling online shop. And we were like, okay, we'll start it up in the background, but you're going to have to quit. I was going to have to quit my job because it would be a conflict of interest for the company I was now working for. So we thought we would get all the ducks lined up in a row and then decide what to do when we had to. By losing that job, decision was made for us. Okay, the time is now.
Okay, yeah.
And so now I run a shop called One Less Car, and this shop is different in that I wanted a shop that specialized in cycling for transport, because the girls at work at the job I had prior to that, they were cycling in, and one was new to it and one was sort of new to it. And they're like, where do you go to get a jacket that, doesn't look like floral yellow all over the place and I can wear off the bike? And then they go, oh, I just got back from the bike shop, and the guys in there, oh, they're just such dudes. And like,
yeah, I remember looking for a nice bag. I'm like, I want a nice pannier that I can just lift up and it can look like a bag.
Yeah.
And I can put it on my bike.
Yeah.
And as a bag for my bike, but it's also, and that was a while ago, and there was not very much to offer at that time. I found something, but
Yeah. So that was sort of, and that's the part I'm passionate about, because that was my foothold into the world, right? I think cycling for transport, it changes how you see your city. It changes how you feel about your commute. I know when I had to go take the train to work for whatever reason, I used to dread it. I used to miss my ride, that decompression, and I didn't want to be crammed on that train first thing in the morning and last thing in the day. And I really enjoyed that time on my bike every day, twice a day. And yes, just commuting became a joy. So I just want other people to experience that, but stick at it. So like I said about the bike, I really think that if you have the right kit and you invest a little bit in the right kit, you'll enjoy that ride a little bit more because your feet aren't sopping wet and you're more comfortable. I'm not saying you have to go buy all kinds of specialist kit, but if your commute's more than 5K or so, it does help to have the right kit. So I just want people to enjoy their ride. And I think women in particular are less likely to invest in nice pieces for themselves than men for some reason. I'm not sure why. So I bought a lot of cheap products when I started because I didn't know if I'd stick to it, and then end up replacing it all constantly because it kept breaking. Whereas if you invest in a quality piece, then it will last. So it's more probably people who have done it for a little while and now are getting serious, like this is going to stick. So I'm going to invest a little bit more in some good pieces. So I've curated all the things I've used over the years and really love. So we don't have a huge range of products. We have a very curated things that last, things that work, things that I've used and loved and know from experience work. So that's sort of what it's about. And then in the future, so we've only been open since August. The idea is to add a line for touring. So it's traveling by bike, be that short distance to work and shopping or around town to meet your friends, or long distance to explore the world. So that's what I love about cycling, is exploring the world by bike. And so the next line we'll introduce will be touring lines with panniers and kit for touring, and merino wool tops that you can wear touring. And
that's so huge, Michelle, because I just here locally, I've been watching some ladies get into bike packing, right, and gravel riding.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Which is what they call touring now. They used to call it
touring bike. Well, they use it bike packing. So. Yeah. And I actually watched one of your videos. You were talking about some of the kit that you had together. And I was like, and I got my first gravel ride. It's actually a steel frame Bianchi that was repurposed as a gravel bike from this company in this they're called Retro Rides. And they just buy up old steel frames and they refurbish them. Nice. So instead of spending $4,000, I spent $1,200, and I got like a good, solid, comfortable gravel bike. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Like, and I've been interviewing a lot of people who are into backpacking or bike touring. And I'm like, now this seems really cool. Like, I think this is something that I'd like to do or explore more of. So I did my own little like full day ride to a location to meet my husband, my kids. And I'm like, okay, you guys are going to go here. I'm going to bike from home there. And I'm going to take all the back roads, and I'm going to bring like extra kit and stuff, and to, like clothes and things like that on my pannier and things. So I learned a lot along the way, let's just say. It took me like 7 hours to go 700 kilometers. And I had to stop because my pannier, like my little top bag, which is like, I don't know, probably 10 years old. It like basically bounced off, like it really ripped right off.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I had one bungee cord. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I need another bungee cord. And wouldn't you know, as I was biking, there was one on the road. I'm like, stopped and like picked it up.
Your fairy bike mother was watching over you.
Yeah, I know, the universe like sent me something along further down the road, but literally. And I was like, okay, this is a good learning experience, because I don't know if I would backpack like tent just yet, because I was watching you, and that's like buying a whole lot of lightweight stuff. But you can certainly bike to locations, stay, bike back. Yeah. And I like that option too, because I never thought of it.
Yeah. It's good to then try, push yourself and then try the next thing and then add on to the next thing. It's a big leap to go from never having done it to the stealth camping and all of that at once. Yeah. It's expensive, because our lead up to cycling across Canada, we had to buy touring bikes. So we got touring bikes that were Canadian. I just happened to see Brody, which is a Canadian company, posted somewhere. Yeah, I want that bike. That's my bike. And Nathan's like, yeah, get me one too. they were on sale, and the Canadian dollar or the pound was quite strong at the time. So what we paid for them was phenomenal. The risk was they were in Vancouver. We were starting in Vancouver. My sister lives there. So
Okay.
they had to pick them up for us. And so we tested everything in the UK, the camping gear. The one thing we didn't test before we rode across Canada was the actual bikes we were riding, which is a big risk. Yeah. And I was between two sizes. Lesson learned, if you're between two sizes and you're a girl and it's a unisex bike, go down a size. I went up a size. So I had to do a bunch of modifications in Calgary to get the reach. The reach was just too much. I have a very short torso and very long legs. So it was a good fit for the legs, but not the upper body. But the risk paid off because I still have that bike and I love it. And even though I know, it'd be better if it was the 51, not the 54, every time I get on that bike, all the memories come back and the good times. And it's just such a solid bike. And I know
have a Brody. I have a Brody as well. It's a mountain bike.
Get out!
It's steel. It's chromoly actually, and it's like 20 years old, and I love that bike. Like I'll never let go of it. It just like the shifting, the riding, the rolling. Like it's 20 years old. It's like a hardtail. Yeah. And I did some phenomenal racing on that, and I was just like, wow.
When I went to do the Grand Fondo and the Whistler Vancouver Grand Fondo, Brody lent us a couple bikes, a gravel bike for me. It was an adventure bike technically to ride the Fondo on, which saved us having to bring bikes over to Vancouver. And they lent us two hardtails for when we were in. We went up to where the wineries are in the lake. Anyway, we had a weekend away, so we had some off-road bikes to take from it. So they lent us those bikes because I could show them off on the channel and stuff. They make fun bikes, and even the not top end ones they make are such good fun. Like when I had to give that gravel bike back, I was like, I like those 650B wheels, they were good. And it was I think it was the steel one, that one was. So when I was going up the big hill, the big climb in the Grand Fondo, there's a King of the Mountain segment, and I was going by this woman on an S-Works. I was like, oh yeah, me and my steel bike.
Yeah, that's right.
She could have just had an injury right before it. I'm sure she's very good. The satisfaction of a steel bike going past an S-Works carbon bike is like, That's why I can't race, because I get like that, right? No.
That's okay. It's good to have a little bit of competitive nature in us. So let's talk about your shop a little bit more, because you said you just started in August. And I know because you said that you have some inventory kicking around that you want to show off.
So I have a couple things that I think will interest the roadies and the commuters. So
all right, let's go.
One of the favorites I have, and this is one of our best sellers, is and people who ride road will recognize this concept, but it's a silicone shoe cover. So it turns your shoes into waterproof shoes, right? So you just slip that on. It takes unlike the road ones, it takes a couple seconds to get this on. So you slip your shoe into there, and then that makes your normal shoes waterproof.
Oh, so there's no opening for a cleat or anything.
Yes. So people who commute. So my idea of people who commute and ride around town is you're dressing for your destination. You might not be, but I'm helping people who also dress for where they want to go. Right.
Right.
So you're wearing normal shoes. It's raining. 'Cause once I moved out of London and I'm in Bristol now, I didn't have the transport options that I had in London. So I depend on cycling to get around here. And there is no decent bus system and there's no train system. So I depend, but I don't always dress like when I commuted 14K, that was exercise and I was pushing hard. When I ride a bike here and I have electric Bromptons, I'm wearing normal clothes a lot of the time and I need to cover my shoes. So yeah, you could probably cut holes in the bottom if you had cleats, but there's other ones for people with cleats. So this is for people, they're bigger because they're meant to go over a normal shoe, right? So
that is super cool. I don't think I've seen ones like that.
And I don't know if you've ever wrestled with a road shoe version. My husband has the road shoe version of Silicone ones. I mean, it's a big pain.
Well, I have neoprene.
Yeah, okay.
Neoprene zip ones. Yeah.
So my husband has silicone road shoe ones, and what the faff. These are like super 2 seconds. It's on over your trainers. Like they're brilliant, and it just tucks away in your back.
There's no worry of ripping those? Like they stretch, stretch?
Yeah, no, they stretch no problem. And there's a tread on the bottom to give you grip and an extra, like if you have pedals with little spiky bits, right? So they're brilliant if you wear normal shoes on your bike. Love those. The other thing, so this is the latest thing that arrived today. So this is called, interestingly enough, I'm from Nova Scotia, and this is a Lobster Lock. And the reason I love this is because, so these come out and they're like a lobster claw that go around your frame and back wheel like that. And the reason I love this lock is because I've gone out on my bike to run errands, got halfway down to where I'm going, or arrived at wherever I'm going and been like, oh, forgot my lock. And I have to go home to get my lock, which is a pain. And this lock, it bolts itself, I don't know if you can see, it bolts itself to your water bottle cage bolt.
Right. Oh, okay. Is that part of the holder that goes underneath your water bottle and then it attaches on the side like some bike pumps?
No, it actually screws. So it actually, this is the
oh, you don't have your, you can't put your water bottle on it.
You can put your water bottle on the top of it.
Okay.
So you put this on first, and then you can mount your water bottle holder with it on top. Okay. But it means your lock is always on your bike, which for a commuter transport bike is great. You know, it's not for your weekend road riding bike. Now if I go out, I always have a lock on my bike because it stays on my bike. And it goes, I put it on the back tube, the seat tube, so that it goes around the back wheel. So it secures your frame and your wheel. So that's the newest thing. It's an American company, so it took a while to get it over here in the UK or figure out how to.
Oh, lobster claw, lobster
lock, yeah. And then
lobster lock.
Oh no. Okay, so two more. So this is a dynamo, and this goes with a light. But unlike an expensive dynamo that goes in your hub that you have to get a new wheel and you have to get somebody to install it, this uses frictionless and contactless, and it creates a magnetic field with it has to be aluminum rim, it won't work with carbon rims. So with your aluminum rim, it creates a magnetic field that creates the power to power your light. So you have no friction, you have no contact, but you have the benefit of a dynamo.
Right. I remember. Yeah. Okay. You can't take that out of the box. Or is there more pictures on the back, Michelle?
No. I mean, there is so that's the wheel, and you line it up.
Oh, I see. All right, everybody. So if you're not on, if you might want to watch this on YouTube, should have said that from the beginning. Yeah. So Michelle's showing us some of her products. And if you want to flip there, you definitely can, because in the show notes, there's a link directly to the YouTube video. So, all right. I really like that because I remember when I was a kid, we'd have that big light on the front fork that attached, that there's a little like it was run off
and it touched your wheel and it caused friction. It made it harder to pedal, and you would pull it out in the day to reduce that friction. So
like it would like on off kind of.
Yeah. And a lot of people hear dynamo and they think, but this does not touch your wheel. It's completely contactless, frictionless. It uses the magnetic field of your wheel and what's inside the dynamo to create the power.
So how much power goes out of the light? Like how much is it going to, you've tested this, right?
Yeah. So it's great for city riding. You wouldn't want it on a dark path in the middle of nowhere on a country lane, because it's not lighting the road in front of you in an enormous amount. It's a be seen light basically versus a see by light. So if you ride on country paths for part of your ride, you probably want one to turn on when you get to the country road or lanes in this one. But this means that I have daytime running lights, all year round. If I get caught, I've got caught out before where I didn't think I was going to be coming home at night and I ended up having to, and I had no lights on me, so I always have lights on that bike because once you put the light on, you don't have to take it off to charge it. So
okay. So this is like one of those, like, it kind of acts like a reflector so people can see you from front and back, or is it just front?
Front and back, but it is a light. It's a solid beam of light, and it does put a beam of light on the ground. I just, knowing the speed that some people travel, it wouldn't be powerful enough on a dark lane to probably give you the light you'd want, right? So but it's light. It's
like
not
night riding, it wouldn't be a light for night riding.
No, it is a night riding, but it's a light to be seen. right?
That's
So you've
what I
got
mean.
lights that are for being seen, and you've got lights that are for seeing.
Yes.
Almost,
So it's
yeah, yeah.
okay.
So because of the amount of power it's generating because of the way it generates it, it's not like 200 lumens. It meets the Danish law for lights at night because they're a Danish company.
Okay.
So it is producing a good I think it's 60 looms on the front, and the back is plenty bright enough for a backlight. You can see it from. Everyone, go to my YouTube channel. There's a video.
Exactly. Well, we'll make sure to add the links to these products, like both on her store and on her YouTube channel, so you can go and look at both of them.
Because it's hard to explain this concept without seeing, but it's a light that lights up, and when you stop pedaling, it flashes for 2 minutes. So if you hit a red light, you're still lit up, so cars can still see.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
And I love it because now I can just grab my bike, my transport bike, and go. It's got the lock attached. The lights are always attached. It's always night, day. It's ready to go. And it's like driving, right? You don't have that faff of putting a light on your bike.
Right. Or remembering it, or like, oh, I forgot my light, because that's me.
Or charging it, or it running out halfway through a ride, or all of, right? Because I used to carry 2 sets of lights when I commuted in London in case the set I was using ran out halfway home. I had another set in my bag all the time. Like, these lights don't run out, they don't need charging, and because you're not taking them on and off your bike, they don't break. Whereas I used to break sometimes the the connectors to your, yeah. So I used to buy a set of lights every year. That was one of the things I didn't spend enough money on when I started, and but I would still break the clasps with the good ones and have to get new clasps, so that those ones just stay on your bike and they don't break because you're not taking them on and off. So they are genius. They're one of the best sellers. Once people understand the concept, they love the idea.
Yeah, I can see that. I like what you're doing, like what you put together, like the lock and the light for your commuter. Yeah, that combo is really cool, because that's one of the things that I put on my Christmas list, was like a good set of lights for my bike. I don't know why, but I just don't have lights on them, and I know people, like, when we start riding and it gets darker earlier, you just get
you get caught out.
Yeah, you just got it. So what else do you have?
The last thing is my Aftershocks headphones. So they go on your cheekbones there. Can you see it?
Yep, I can see them.
And so because they're not in your ear, you can hear what's going on around you, and you can have your music or podcast because it's conducting the sound through vibrations to your eardrum through your bones. It's so hard to explain. If you haven't tried them, it's hard to explain. And the best explanation I've had is that it sounds like there's a radio on in the room that only you can hear, right? Because you can talk to people, but you can still hear the music. I mean, I can't talk to people and listen to music, but that's just me. What you have to do to believe that they're actually conducting through your bones is, I tell everyone who tries them to plug their ears, because when you plug your ears, you realize you're not hearing through your ears. That's not where the sound's going. It is going through your bones. So when I'm on my trainer, they come with earplugs. So when I'm on the indoor trainer, I put the earplugs in because the noise interferes and I don't need to hear what's going on around me. So I just plug my ears and then I have really good sound. I mean, it's not Bose quality sound and there's limitations, but every set they come out with gets better and better. So I absolutely love these. I got them from my husband years and years ago, a couple models before this one. For his birthday, and he used them on the ride across Canada, and I swear he would not have made it across the prairies with his music.
I know. I'm like, you can only talk to yourself for so long.
And you can only conversations on the road go like this: blah blah blah, what, blah blah blah, what, but never mind, because the wind in your ears, just don't hear anything, especially me.
I'll talk to you at the next stop.
Yeah. And I had a speaker on my bike, so if he was downwind from me, he had to listen to my music, which we have different tastes in music. So I have my Taylor Swift, he has his stuff that I don't listen to. We have stuff we both listen to, like, the good old stuff, Johnny Cash and some classics, but we don't always agree on what's motivating on the bike.
Yeah, I could attest, like, my husband's playlist got the Killers. I'm like, I freaking like, I don't know why you listen to, but yeah, I attest that. And I just want to reiterate, I have tried those. Yes. And we were just talking about, I'm just going to give them another shot, but they are And I got them because I didn't want to have anything in my ears, but I wanted to listen. And I was experiencing some vibrating in my ears. And so when I put those on, it was really, really cool. So I'm gonna say, like,
I wish I could pass these through to you, because
I know, don't worry, Michelle, I'm gonna make these work.
The lack of vibration in these, because I know what those were 2 or 3 generations ago. I think there are 3 generations. They've managed to reduce the vibration and make the sound better at the same time. It's amazing.
Oh, but it is very cool. And I'm glad that you mentioned that there was a mini, because I found that the piece around my head was a bit big.
Yeah, I couldn't wear it
for my cranium. Just like, so it kind of, sometimes it interfered with my ponytail and then my helmet, and then like everything else I had going on back there.
When you have your sunglasses and your strap and I can just fit all 3 of those things on, my sunglasses, strap, and because this new pair is so much sleeker, you can see, right? Like,
and it looks smaller too.
And it's because it's more flexible, they didn't have to make it so big. So this fits me. Nathan's old pair, I couldn't wear the normal size.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to know that there are sizings now, because yes, it was a couple of years ago that I got them for Christmas. And I was so excited, and then I'm going to give them another shot. Like you said, I think I got a bum pair, but they were amazing when they worked. Like, I really liked the fact that they could just sit on my head, and they wouldn't fall out. You know how, like, you got your earbuds, you know, you could just move it and it'll just like pop out of your ear. I'm like, you know, and then it's gone down the road.
I used to wear do the single when you ride with one in your ear.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, just one. But and then like, you don't want to do too much movement with your sunglasses or your strap, and then force it to like just like pop out. But do you have, so I know you showed 3, do you want to share maybe one more, or how they can find you?
So I'll tell you
socials.
So the other types of things, just so you know, that we sell are waterproof gloves. There's a poncho that, because when you're cycling for transport and wearing regular clothes, you don't want your legs to get wet. So the poncho goes over your handlebars, keeps your legs dry underneath your bike. And then there's another jacket. There's another jacket. I couldn't demo it for you, wouldn't fit in the screen, but I love, because it's a normal looking jacket. Doesn't even look like a cycling jacket, but you flip out some little reflective details for when you're cycling, and it's got ventilation, and then you unzip the sides, and then this thing flaps out, and you've got similar coverage as to the poncho, so it'll cover your legs, keep your legs dry. But when you're getting off the bike, you just zip away your little hidden cape, and it looks like a normal jacket. So I love that, because I can wear that riding or not riding, which makes it, even though it's more expensive than the poncho, I get more wears out of it because I can wear it on and off the bike. And it solves that problem of screaming cyclist, because it functions like a jacket for a bike when you need it to, but it's a regular jacket when you don't. So so it's just all those things to make cycling for transport easier, and soon all the things for touring. But I'm slowly building up the items, and because over the years I've tested so many things for people, and I've developed relationships with people in smaller companies and discovered some really cool products. Those are the products I started with, because I know they're good. I don't want people buying stuff and being unhappy with it and just selling cheap lights that break. That really irritated me when I started, right? And I couldn't tell the difference. And I also don't, right? Yeah. And I don't want people overwhelmed by 3,000 different options of, you know, X, Y, and Z. Here's 4 good options, you know, slightly different for different budgets and needs. Because I recognize not everyone dresses normally on a bike. Some people do want to wear the sportier stuff. So we've got some people like wearing the waterproof trousers. So we've got some of those coming in a couple months that you can take off without taking your shoes off, for example, because they completely
whip away.
Yes. I'm not a fan of cycling in trousers. I just find them restrictive and too warm. But I know a lot of people that they swear by them. So, you know, it's not just about my preferences. Obviously, I want to offer options out there. So, and any any products anyone knows out there that's from a small company, message me on Instagram or Twitter, or I'm in all the places. I'd love to know about them, because that's sort of what this is about, the high quality products that actually work and do what they say they do. So that, I want my people
And
to.
it's great if you know of a small company that's close by, or maybe you know somebody who has started a company, and it'd be great for you to get, our listeners to get in touch with Michelle, because then it would provide more exposure for your friend if you happen to know them. It doesn't matter where they are, right?
It doesn't know. The lock came from the States. I'm trolling the world.
Yeah.
Just those things that make cycling for transport fast, free, and easy, so that people choose to ride their bike to where they're going instead of their car, right? It's so when they're sitting side by side, you want the bike to be the obvious easy option, and right now it isn't always. So so I want everyone to love their bikes and ride them more.
I know.
Yeah.
I miss living. That's one of the things that I miss living in the city, because I used to commute all the time to work. It was like 5 kilometers. So I would always dress up in my clothes most of the time.
Yeah.
But, in extreme winter, like ice and snow, you don't look as like you have to, dress up a little bit warmer. You don't want to be sweating in your stuff and things like that. But I miss that. But I'm in the country, so I'm okay.
But you've got good weekend riding, right?
That's right. I'm close to a lot of stuff like road and trail and mountain bikes and hikes and stuff like that. So I'm not missing it as much, but I do miss the being able to commute over driving for sure.
I miss having a commute, because I am in my office right now.
It's having a commute. Like honestly, it's faster than taking buses or driving.
Yeah, it is in Bristol for sure. So, and we have a great path that takes us all the way into town, traffic free. So we're quite lucky where we're located. But I do miss that daily ride. So I ride to the post office to drop off orders. That's only like 1 kilometer and a bit away, so it's not long enough. So I usually end up going to the post office and doing a little bit of riding around for like
after you dropped everything off.
Let's go for a little poodle on the bike to get a few more K in, just because it's just once you're out on it, it's just lovely. So I do miss my commute.
Well, this has been amazing, Michelle. Thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners. I hope you guys took something away, and you've got a couple of things that you're going to go check out, because Michelle had a lot of things in there. We're going to add as much as we can to our show notes so that you can just go and click on the links of her store, or you could just go to onelesscar.life. It's funny because we have a One Less Car organization here in Ottawa, and it's refurbished bikes. But
the name came from a hashtag. So I saw the One Less Car hashtag and I'm like, oh, that is good. And then I bought a cap. I bought a cap that said One Less Car, and then my husband took over the cap because it was too tight for my head. And that's where the inspiration for the name of the shop came from. But even if you just Google One Less Car, we come up the whole first page.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So there you go. You can just search her out. And so thank you so much to our listeners. Don't forget to tag us and follow us on Instagram. We're both there. And share this with somebody who might appreciate learning a little bit more, or is in the UK, or is thinking about getting into cycle touring, or is a commuter. And check out Michelle's store. Thanks a lot, Michelle. This is awesome.